Hello, this is Harriet Grayson, your host and producer for Community Culture Showcase. Well, the summer is waning and the lights are getting dimmer, but we want to celebrate all things positive. And I have today some guests that we're going to talk about a remarkable event that's happening in Westerly, Rhode Island. So all of us are invited to come. You can come from near or far. If you're living in Boston, well, you should come down and see this. You can actually take the train because it's actually going to be hosted in the Westerly train station right on the Amtrak line. So this is a marvelous event open to the entire Northeast corridor. Hop on the Amtrak train and come and visit us because we are going to talk about peace, hope, and remembrance. Now, how could that be anything finer? So I have with me three guests who are going to talk about this event and also talk a little bit about themselves and how they got involved with this. So I want to introduce my wonderful guests. I have Frank, Jude, and Robin. So Frank, you're the only guy with us.
I know.
So start it off.
I'm ready for it.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit how you got involved in this event and what it actually means to you.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Well, so I've been involved in peace and justice for probably 50 years now. And I kind of moved to a place where I used to do a lot of demonstrations and sit-ins and peace. And I've moved to this place where I really feel that any change has to come from the bottom up. So moving forward quickly, I'm a trained nonviolent teacher, certified. But I did this thing in Westerly the last few years called the Summer of Peace. And one of the things that we thought about doing is doing a donation to the art gallery. So they will have a contest, for lack of a better word, as to who can create the best image of peace. And it was done by vote. People could come in and vote for their choice. So I moved from the Summer of Peace to the International Cities of Peace, and I approached the gallery with the same idea.
So this is the gallery in Westerly.
Yeah, the Westerly Artist Co-op. And lo and behold, they already had this idea in motion. So we kind of put the two of them together, and that's how it came to be, very serendipitously, So that's...
And what's your motivator here? I mean, peace is such a vague word.
Well,
what are you really hoping, and even in your own mind, to accomplish?
Well, I feel that the road to peace goes through nonviolence. So I've done some programs on nonviolence for daily living, and I think and nonviolence is it's an art, it's a skill, and it's a science. So there's a lot to it that we really have to learn. And I come out of a place where I think we're all interrelated. All creation is interrelated. And what I do to you in some way will come back to me. And I think if you don't start in that place where either you, some type of belief, whether it's we're all one or all interrelated, or you come out of a spirituality that says, we're all created by divine love. So that's where I come from. I really believe that strongly. And so that's my motivation to help people move in that direction. I think nonviolence is a powerful, concrete manifestation of divine love.
So this is like an offshoot of what we would see as Gandhi's teachings in India, and certainly Martin Luther King Jr. and the whole civil rights movement. So where do we get in terms of peace? I mean, what are we hoping to do? I mean, we are living, our country is not in peace.
No.
We have a war that's going on for 18 years. We have a kind of remnants of another war in the Middle East. We have all kinds of skirmishes. Forget about us. India and Pakistan are going to kind of kill each other. The Chinese are in revolt. I mean, what can we, living in Westerly, Pawcatuck, here in southeast Connecticut, or even along the Northeast Corridor, what can we do?
Well, I feel to create a culture of peace, the essence is it's a culture in which the dignity and worth of every creature, every being, the inherent worth and dignity of every created being is honored and respected. It does not mean that there won't be conflict. And so we were talking before about education. And people, in my opinion, are very, very poorly educated around nonviolence. We are extremely skilled in the ways of war and violent conflict. So I think locally, one of the things we're doing is the Artist Co-op, which begins to get people thinking about peace and what can I do to foster that in my family, you know, my neighborhood, or those types of things. So I used to look more on the global picture, you know, and demonstrating against wars and that, and I've kind of, and I'm not saying that's not good and important, but I've personally have moved down to, you know, working locally to get people to, ideally my thing would be daily living for nonviolence, you know, and how to do that. And
would you put forward things like about against gun violence, for example, and no assault rifles? I mean, our governor of Rhode Island has been speaking about that. Is that something, or is that no?
Well, I don't have a lot of energy for that, for those issues, you know. My energy is around nonviolence. So if you're, not that you are, but if someone is for guns, and I want to find out, first of all, why? What is it in them that feels they need a gun? And rather than arguing against them and showing them this statistic and that fact. And I'm not saying those things aren't important, but personally, my energy has started to go in a different direction. You know, they had a thing at church. The priest was telling me about where the pastor preached on gun violence, and somebody walked out. A couple of people walked out, but I said, "Do you know why?" And he didn't know why. You know, it could have been, it might not have been gun violence. It might have been the fact that that person thought that the priest or the pastor shouldn't be talking about political stuff. It might have had nothing to. So it's really important to see where that person's coming from. And I believe, bottom line, we're all want the same thing.
Okay.
You know? So
that's great.
Yeah.
So Jude is our poet, and we have some wonderful photographs of you that have been given to us. So tell us about, number one, who you are and how you got involved in this event.
Ooh. Those are big questions. Who am I? It's a question I ask pretty much daily, and I don't have the answer.
Oh, okay.
But I can tell you that working for, I love what you said about how we're unified. That's very much where I come from as well, is that we're part of an interconnected web. And I think I've seen that since I was a child. I think I saw it in the trees and the nature around me. And I, like Frank, have been working to try to make the world a more peaceful, loving place for 50 years, since I came of age and got old enough to think for myself. Started protesting the Vietnam War in 1969 when I was 15 years old. But my brother was over there, and I didn't want to lose him, and I didn't want to lose the friends that were about to go over. So I think who I became had a lot to do with the culture at that time when I was growing up and seeing what the world was and seeing the interconnectedness of everything and everyone. I honestly don't remember how I connected into this project. However I heard about it, I knew it was totally in tune with everything I feel like my life is about. And so, you know, I responded to the connection and I said, I'd like to do this. Meanwhile, a lot of things have come into my life. A very dear family member has developed stage 4 cancer, and it's been challenging to juggle everything, but this is important. What is more important than that we all find a way to live together in harmony? Otherwise, what is there? Really, what is there?
So you are a poet.
Yes.
And you will be reading poetry on September 15th at this event at the train station.
Yes.
And I asked you if you would give us an example
Yeah.
of your poetry, if you would just read it right
Yeah,
now for us, so we
I'm-
get into the mood, so we know what
Yeah.
to expect on September 15th.
So I'm going to read one that is in tune it's in tune with this territory. It was published in Nimrod International Journal, and it was part of a finalist entry, that finalist for the Pablo Neruda Award. And it's called After the Perseid Meteor Shower. This was written a couple of years after 9/11. And it begins with an epigraph by Mother Teresa. If we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. After the Perseid meteor shower, the end of summer, the end of night shooting her stars, tossing them toward us through galaxies and time while we watched with mouths and eyes open wide as children delighted by the 4th of July. Flags waving, our chests swelling with pride. Night after night, thousands of meteors dove into their dying, like Palestinians and Israelis, like Afghanis and Iraqis, like those people September 11th in buildings and planes, shedding their skin, relinquishing time, so all the children watching might finally see how each of us blazes a singular trail made of darkness and light, how we're all falling through this same abiding night.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Awful.
So we can expect on September 15th that you will be reading a different poem.
Yes.
And that there are several other poets who
Yes,
will be
there
reading
are.
with you.
The other poets are, and I'm not sure of the name pronunciations of all of them, Barry Bayon, Melanie Greenhouse, who is the one of the founding directors of Arts Cafe Mystic, Linda Langlois, Lynn Leonard, James B. Nicola, Dawn Paoletta, myself, and Lisa Starr, who is a former Rhode Island Poet Laureate.
Yes, that's a great group. And all of you think are going to incorporate this idea of hope and peace and remembrance?
I think people are approaching it in whatever way speaks to them. I know the work that Melanie is going to be presenting. She is, her family just barely survived the Holocaust. They got out of Bratislava at the very last minute. And, you know, if they hadn't, she wouldn't be here.
Right.
So she has a very personal, that is also, when you, with poetry, with any art, and you all know that, you know
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
With art, the more specific you are to your experience, the more it speaks to everyone's heart. And, yeah, her poem is really, that's the only one I know what it is she's
great.
reading,
That's
besides my
wonderful.
own.
Yeah, no. And I think that when I think of peace, you do think of poetry. Of course, there's plenty of
Yeah.
warmongers who have written poems exaggerating and emphasizing war, but I like to think of poetry more of a kind of a peaceful endeavor.
Yeah,
and supporting more peaceful results, let's say.
I think my experience in reading a lot of poetry over the decades is that is far more often the case.
Yes.
Far more often. I mean, it's a way of looking at the world, as is art, where you're looking at the whole, and you can't help but see how useless it is to create strife, because as Frank said, that stirs up the web that we are all a part of. You know, it just we make our own lives miserable.
Right.
It comes back on us.
So you'll have about an hour within this program, which is September 15th.
Right.
At the Westerly train station,
Right.
hosted by the Westerly Arts Cooperative.
Yes.
And it's on from 1 to 5 p.m. so that
Yes.
people can come there and have just a wonderful afternoon of looking at wonderful pieces of art.
Yeah.
Hearing wonderful local poets, actually with bigger names than just local poets.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have food, of course. We always have to have food, food and beverages.
And some
so-
music.
Yeah,
Music.
music.
Yeah.
And
I
music.
believe
Yeah.
some stories by Holocaust survivors, as I
Yes.
recall.
Yes,
Exactly.
or their children, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Robin, tell us a little bit about your involvement in this.
Well, I've been a member of the Co-op Gallery for, I think, close to probably 20 years. And I'm a painter, and I've been painting, I'm 70, so I've been painting for at least 68 years, I would say. And my work is happy. It's pictorial, it's not realistic, but it all was meant to make me feel good and hopefully make other people feel good. You know, it's joyful.
Okay.
And I think that we all have lots of difficulties in life, and the world is a difficult place from time to time. So if I can bring a smile to someone's face by what I've done, then I think that that's really worthwhile. And so that happens, and it's absolutely lovely. It's gratifying, and
What medium do you use?
acrylic paint.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Have you always done acrylic paint?
I've done different things.
Yeah, I've sometimes interview many artists, and they talk about how
My
they've
favorite
gone
thing,
through different phases.
my favorite thing was to be a welder.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Sculpture.
So so I
Metal
welded.
sculpture.
Yeah, I welded, and that was really great. But you know, you need a big place, and you
Yes.
need a garage, and you need. And I didn't have all those
Okay.
things, so painting worked. You know, you can
Yes.
do it in a small place, and you don't need any equipment, and
Right.
so that was a really great. And the Co-op Gallery was the first place that I actually applied, the first gallery I ever applied to, and I was really a nervous wreck about it, and they accepted me. I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, this group of artists accepted me to be a part of them, and that was totally wonderful. And so I just always stayed a member there. And what happened with our exhibit, we have one of our very talented members, Madeline Boudre, approached me one day and said, you know, September is the 80th anniversary of the start of World War II. And that's a very significant time. And we don't want to, or she, and I think appropriately, didn't want to commemorate war, or that the Allies won, or any of the negative parts that we all include when we think of that period of time.
Right.
But to think about how important it is to be able to go forward and think about ourselves as a global community, and to think about peace, and to honor the 8 million people that died because of World War II.
80 million.
80 million, of
80
course.
million.
Yeah, 80 million. I apologize, 80 million. 8 million would be a lot. 80 million is it's really
Astronomical.
unthinkable.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So that's that was the impetus to get started, and then we started to contact different artists, and Frank came into the picture. Our gallery is going to have an exhibit by co-op members that have to do with peace, and that have to do with commemoration, or the thrill of just being alive, and what does that all mean to you. And we've asked people to make a special, a special piece specifically for this event.
Right.
So that will be in one section of the gallery, and then we'll have the whole, just the regular members' work throughout the rest of the gallery. And we're doing, as you can see in the poster, lots of different parts to September 15th.
Right.
And Madeline has made peace cranes, and there's a picture of them on the poster, but they're going to be like a mobile that's coming down. She's also made
she did a labyrinth too.
yeah, she made a labyrinth that people are going to be able to walk through. Making a poster, well, a large one. It's going to be 3 feet by 6 feet of a tree of life, and we're going to cut out leaves, and people can write on the leaves about, remembering somebody or honoring somebody or what they're thinking about, and they'll be able to tape it right onto the tree. and we have a menorah that a rabbi is going to be lighting at the end of the ceremony, and you're going to be part of that, right? I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you and I are going to be. I'm not sure. You might be too. But anyway, we're going to be lighting that at the end of the day. And that menorah was made by one of our artists. Let's see what else.
Well, I can say that the reason why I am involved in this event is because of Rabbi Adler. So Rabbi Adler is the rabbi from our local Westerly congregation.
Right.
So it is through him that we got involved, that I got involved, and Congregation Shaharat Zedek, which is the local Jewish synagogue in Westerly, how we then got involved with it to honor the 6 million who were murdered, as well as the 80 million people who were also civilians, soldiers, everyone. It was a massive, massive war, and that was unfortunately the result. So we say Kaddish, which is a prayer for the dead.
Yes.
And Jews have this thing, I am, of course, Jewish. We have
Me
this,
too.
So you know that we have this thing
Yes.
about not honoring someone's birthday, but we honor their death. I just lit a candle last night for my mother, who's gone now 5 years. And so that's what we have. This is what we do. It's part of our religious, ethical, just part of our culture that we honor the dead and want to but think wonderfully of them when we are honoring them. Now, well, sometimes I go and I cry when I think about my mom. But at the same time, what I'm trying to do is to remember all the good things. So that's part of the hope and remembrance. I don't know about peace, but that's part of the kind of the ethical part of the culture, and so that's being displayed at this event. And then, being Jews, we figure we got to feed people. So the congregation will be making food, little table, hand food for the event. So there'll be some food there, because we know that you can't be around for 4 hours and not want to eat something.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And then I have asked the Tapped Apple, which makes cider and wine, which is downtown Westerly.
Yep.
If they'll come and just provide us some wine and cider, and the people there have agreed to come there, and so we'll have a bit of that. So it'll be an interesting event. There'll be a little bit for everyone, and no lies, it is no harm in asking people to take the train.
Absolutely.
And come, because there's a lot of good things that come out of that train station. The very fact that we're not sitting on 95 in the cars, sweating and cursing because the traffic is so abominable, especially on a Sunday. It is ever so nice to show up from anywhere along that Northeast corridor on the train system, to come from Boston to New York, from Philadelphia, to come and visit and have an opportunity. Now, I think the best thing that ever happened to your cooperative was getting kicked out of United Theater.
Yes.
And moving to the train station.
Oh, 100%. It's such a beautiful location.
Yeah,
it's so beautiful. It looks so professional. The Rotary Club made our walls for us, because we weren't allowed to put anything directly on the wall of the building, and so we have all these false walls that are fabulous. And one of our artists did the whole lighting system, which looks unbelievably professional, and it's a gorgeous space.
Absolutely. Don't ever leave that space.
I hope we don't.
Yes.
I hope we
because
don't.
you have all these people who come, especially in the summer, all the summer visitors, have no idea what you are, but they said, oh, well, I have to go to the bathroom, so they come inside the building, and they say, oh my God, look at this, and you have everything possible, everything from note cards that people can spend very little money to some beautiful paintings. It's not likely that someone would come from the train station, but maybe, you never know. But it's an opportunity for it to get some notice. And then the next person who comes from New York or Boston to Westerly says, oh, and don't forget, stop in the train station, because beside the bathroom they have these wonderful artwork right there.
And somebody that's coming, they can go in and look at something and then say, oh, I'd like that. They'll pay for it, and they can come back with their car, and pick it up. So that's wonderful. And we can also, of course, ship things.
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's the best thing that ever happened to the Arts Cooperative was landing up
I do too.
in the train station. So and Amtrak, opening it up like that, because I've been here for many years in Westerly, and I've taken the train frequently. And once upon a time, there used to be a ticket taker in there.
I do remember that.
And the guy, we would joke around, and he said to me, when I retire, there'll be no more. And when he retired,
Oh, is that what
Yeah.
happened? I
there,
didn't know
there
why.
was no more.
Right.
And then they had a kiosk inside the building.
Right.
And then, I don't know why, they didn't want to keep the lights on. Then they took the kiosk outside the building. People vandalized the kiosk. And
So
there was
there's no more,
kiosk.
no.
So now it has a much better use than
Yep.
simply train travelers. It meets that need plus more.
You know, going back to the day and the menorah, one of the things that we worked on a little bit is going from remembrance of all the violence, and then the last one that I have the privilege of doing is about the transition to peace and nonviolence. So that's kind of the way it's set up there. And then Robin,
Yes.
I was going to ask you, are you going to be able to produce a work for the contest?
Yes, I do
Okay.
have one.
Well, I was going to suggest maybe you might want to do some lobbying on it.
Alrighty.
So you're going to have a juried art show. Is that the idea?
No,
Yeah.
No.
It's not a juried show. It's anybody that makes a piece specifically, makes an artwork specifically for the event will be in one area.
Okay.
And then the public is invited to decide which piece
Yeah.
they think
Oh,
is.
so it's a popularity
Yeah,
contest.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Which
okay.
is really good because
Sure.
it's going to, in my opinion, I think it's because it's going to give people the chance to look at the work and absorb it a little bit and see what it means to them.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even after that, they'll sort of carry it with them, that particular
Mm-hmm.
thing. So I guess it sounds like you have, the Oscorp has a really good system for counting the votes.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And also people, excuse me, people that are participating, the artists that are participating, have been asked to write about their artwork,
oh, good.
explaining why they've done what they've
Wow.
done. So,
That's a really good
so I
idea.
think that
Yeah.
really adds to it. It
definitely.
explains how did you come to make that? How does this influence you personally? You'll have the artwork there, and some people can look at artwork and just grab it and understand,
Yeah.
and that other people might not. So I think that
That's
makes
great,
it.
yeah.
What are you saying about your specific piece of work?
Well, this summer very often I work with children in the at the Providence rec centers.
Okay.
There are a number of rec centers, and I do an art club, and I go sometimes from center to center after school programs. And so this summer I got contacted by a woman who runs a specific project called Partners for Providence Parks, which is a part of she's connected with the rec centers, and she runs a lot of creative programs. Anyway, she called me and she said, well, we got some money and we want to do a mural in one of the centers. And the director had decided that the mascot for the center would be a white tiger. So we had a young man design a white tiger, and he's playing basketball because we put it in the gym. So there's the tiger and the basketball. But then they said we would like a mural. And so I worked with about 30 kids for 2 sessions, and I had pictures of tigers, and I found clip art, pop-up coloring books that were in the public domain, and so I brought those pictures. Some of them traced those, some of them made their own pictures. And originally I was planning to do something with the children's artwork from the book I Never Saw a Butterfly Again, which is a book compiled of drawings that kids at concentration camps did. And it says that they were liberated or that they died and what the dates of their lives were, and it's very beautiful. And it turned out that some other people wanted to do work related to that book, and so I thought, well, I don't want to just do that. Let me think about what else I can do. So for the mural, I worked with the kids, and then I took their artwork and I enlarged some things, I reduced some things, and I made a collage of their work and my designing the whole thing. And then that got approved, and so we painted it on the wall. And it's really fabulous. It just changes the whole room, and they're all
yeah.
so excited about it. So and so I had all these tigers, and then they said, "Oh, but we want the sports equipment." So one has a baseball bat, you know, one's got the soccer ball. Anyway, that's very funny, and so I thought about teaching these children, and these are all minority children, and what can I give them? And giving them a sense of pride, and giving them a sense of, they walk in and they go, I did that, but 4 of them did that same image, so they all think it's theirs, which is great. So I have pretty much all 30 of them represented in this piece, and I thought, okay, I'm going to take this piece. So I took it yesterday to be framed, and it's large. It's about that big, and I'm going to write all about how that came about and my interest in helping children feel really proud of themselves and their ability to express themselves, and they can work together, and that they had one little piece, but when we put all of their work together, look what it becomes, and how they can support each other. That's what I'm doing.
Yes, I'm gonna vote for you.
There's your first vote. There's your vote.
You might want to wait and see.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I think it's very important that we use art like in schools,
right.
and poetry and writing. I mean, it's just
Oh.
that is what kind of soothes the savage beast. And so my interest has always been with kids in school, has been with musical instruments.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So I was a horrible musician. My mother was convinced, though, that I had talent, and she made me. So I played the accordion.
Oh my gosh, that's hard.
No, it isn't. It isn't actually, because the rhythm, the rhythm actually makes it easier to keep time. But nobody. Then I went into school, and nobody plays the accordion in an orchestra. So I was looking for the instrument that was the easiest to carry on the bus. And I picked the clarinet because it was really small.
I tried it for about a week.
Yes, and actually it's harder than it looks.
Oh, yes.
So I played that for years, and so I learned how to read music and all of that stuff. But I was still a terrible musician. But, however, I do have this great appreciation how music can change a kid. Really can change a kid. Teaches them discipline. And, of course, when you play for a group, you have to learn your piece. And then you have to learn to play with the group. In terms of the piece. And you also learn you don't have to be linear, so that you can learn to take a piece and say in the middle, learn that part first, because maybe it's easier, or maybe it's the hardest and you want to grapple with that first. And so you also learn to be inventive, because you don't have to be linear in terms of learning how to play music.
Oh, that's I never thought about it that way.
So that, so that's what I'm always, hassling. I hassle the politicians, In fact, when we in Westerly, the politicians are on the ballot and have no opposition, which I think is anti-democratic.
Absolutely.
I put my name in.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You should all put your names in.
I never thought about that. That's
There
great.
should never be a ballot that has no other opposition.
I typically write anyone else.
No, write your own name. Write my name. Doesn't matter. Just
okay.
write a name, so that they should learn that is absolutely anti-democratic. Doesn't mean that you think you're ever going to win, that they're not going to win, but it just raises, at least you tell people, so that it raises people's awareness.
Right.
And the registrar actually knows, because they have to count those votes.
Yeah.
And in Westerly, as some of you may or may not know, Caswell Cook got elected when no political party would actually put him up as a candidate. He ran as an independent, and because he's well known in the community, people voted for him, and he's on the council again. So it isn't.
That's great.
Yeah, right.
That's
it's
great.
Not necessarily a failed kind of campaign.
No.
But that's part of it. Anyway, so that's my thing. All the schools should have music.
They need the arts. They need all the
arts are so important, and music. And then when you were talking about your poetry, I heard you say, to paraphrase, that really good poetry is about a personal experience that comes from the heart. And that's...
I think the specific, yes.
Yeah.
And when you enter the specific deeply, you evoke something personal for everyone.
Exactly, yeah.
It's interesting we're talking about children so much, because I was inspired in part with my poem, which is called Children, by seeing Madeline Beaudry brought in her piece so that I could see it, because we've worked together in the past where I've written an ekphrastic poem inspired by her work. And I think the reason we're also moved by children, because we all know what it is to be vulnerable and fragile, and we can see that in children, but we all have a child inside of us.
Oh, absolutely.
And if there's anything that we do in terms of peace, it's this idea of what are we going to leave a future
The next generation.
I have daughters, I have granddaughters.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of world are we going to leave them? So it becomes our responsibility, each and every one of us, to try and make this world in even some small way a little bit nicer than when we left it. And I'm a child of the 60s, so I know about protesting the Vietnam War. And of course, to some extent, it really didn't do any good. I think the country got exhausted and just gave it up. But there's always some way to make peace, because we live in a world that unfortunately we don't have many times when there actually is peace in this world. So all of us have to do whatever it is, a little bit at a time, so that the world is better for our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren and the next people who are going to inherit this earth. So I think that's sort of I take that as part of my responsibility.
Remember that song? I think it was Crosby, Stills and Nash. Teach the children well.
Yes, exactly
song.
right, exactly.
And
right.
they're kind of related. One of the things that is happening in Rhode Island is and you probably have heard of it, there's a group called Nonviolent Schools Rhode Island, and it's a program where they bring teachers in and teach them how to use nonviolence in their classroom. So it's
is this like designed to do conflict resolution in a way that where the kids aren't having fistfights?
Right, and just general kindness and helping each other out, and a lot of it is around conflict resolution in a nonviolent way. So there's some really positive things going on.
Well, and interestingly, this all dovetails with current psychological research of the last decade or two, an amassing body of research that proves that what helps people grow more whole is kindness, compassion, not the things that we thought in the 50s, not to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and just get on with it. That doesn't work. That actually sets you back. But if you are kind to the child inside you, that's how you help heal the world.
And gratitude's a big
that's a powerful tool as well.
And are you involved in actually putting together like a curriculum that would work with kids in school?
They have one already.
Okay.
There's a Peace and Justice School, the Institute for Peace and Nonviolence. There's one in URI that does trainings, and a woman that came out of that, Robin Wellman, I forget her last name, but she has done that in her own classroom for years, and now she and a bunch of others have put together the program. So it's maybe in its second year. If you Google that, Nonviolent Schools Rhode Island.
Okay. And that's out of the university itself? Is she a child psychologist?
It's a separate. It's housed at URI, but it's a separate entity, from my understanding of the school. But if you Google URI, Peace and Nonviolence, it will come up and have links to everything. But it's and
what we need to do is have constant exposure to that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
That kind, to have teachers who talk about being kind to one another instead of clobbering one another, that you can actually get things accomplished, because I think we're losing sight of that. I mean, we're losing some of the culture wars with that. I mean, there is no kindness. You put on the mass TV, or you put on your computer, or you look in the internet. Where is kindness? Where is gratitude?
It's one of the things I feel like is the foundation of my income producing practice is a holistic consultant practice of a master's degree in counseling, and I'm also a non-dual healer. And that is invariably what people are longing to learn is how do I speak kindly to myself? How do I integrate self-kindness? Because it's like, you know, Mother Teresa says, we have to do it for everyone. But that starts with doing it for yourself.
Right.
It really does, which is, I think Buddhism is aware of that. I think all of the major spiritual traditions are aware of that in their way. But it's
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
it's just, it's filtering into the psychological research now, and it's proven.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about two different things. And one, NPR has the This I Believe.
Yeah, I love
and people, you know, write an essay. And one of these days I actually will try to do this, but I think you have to believe in yourself before you can believe in anything else. So this I believe, and that I believe in myself, and then
That's
you
beautiful.
can take that forward. And the other thing is that I think by working with children from, you know, preschool through high school,
Or the child in yourself as well.
that our children teach us. You know, we might not be so open to hearing, like, I meet you and we're chit-chatting, and then you say something that is profound, but I'm really not open to that at that moment. But if my child brings something home from school, or I go to their school and there's an exhibit about something, I think that makes a real difference. And even with the ability to marry, in this country, to marry who you love, no matter what sex they are. And Obama said that he came to realize that was important from his children. You know, and if if the children of our president can, you know, help him get on board to change a law in this country, you know, that's quite remarkable.
Yeah, there's a number of, speaking of children, there's a number of things on Facebook about, there was just one the other day where this, I think either 13 or 15-year-old kid won, I think, like $10,000 prize for some exhibit at some show, and he donated to the local hospital.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
yes. That's a
And
very
then
kind
you
thing.
see these things. There was another kid, maybe 8 or 9, that was, I think, selling lemonade, and he was going to give the money to the families of the
Immigrant children.
That child, I think, was on the Cape.
So there's all these young people here. So
Yes, they're showing us up in a good
Definitely,
way. Yes,
definitely.
that there is another way
Yeah.
beside
So they're really-
beating each other up. That there is an actual another way and a better way. You know, out of the mouths of babes, right?
Right.
Yeah, we hear the truth, and sometimes you're right. Sometimes that's the only thing we listen to.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
sometimes that's true. Maybe because the kids are nagging you, look, you know, or
It's because
who
we
knows,
cherish
you know,
them.
yeah.
We treasure them and cherish them, and that's where learning to have that relationship with the child inside you,
It's really
that
important.
that place inside you is also going to reveal so much wisdom and beauty.
Yep.
But you know, it can be both. It can be both.
So it's wonderful that we're as a bunch of different groups, individuals have gotten together to create this September 15th event.
That it's going to include so many arts. I think
Yeah.
we don't have theater and we don't have dance, but we
We
have.
could start dancing
Oh,
with the
yes.
music.
Okay,
Music,
yeah, let's
right?
go.
You never know what's going to happen.
Yes,
You
yes.
don't. That's
Yes,
true.
yes,
Yeah, we can. If it's a nice day, just right out
know
in
what they-
front.
Right there
you know?
outside.
They have those instruments outside the train station or the Harmony Trail.
Yeah,
Right.
I heard
So-
someone Monday morning playing one
Oh,
of them.
yeah. You can go out and play them and get a little dance. So
Yeah, oh, well, so we might even get that. That would be
right.
awesome.
Yes.
So, but we are bringing different disciplines together to celebrate, and really it's a celebration of joy and of peace, and honoring those that sacrificed their lives in the past, and mostly looking forward. There'll be information about the past. People will talk about that, but also that we really can make a difference. Whether it's through an organization, our own creativity, a group. There are lots of different ways to go about it.
I think it's a big push to do this, but I think it's really important because I don't think people are even aware of even an idea like peace. I mean, I think people march through their own drummer day after day, and they sort of get lost in what's going on today in my life, right at this moment. What am I responsible for? To look a little bit beyond themselves. And people might actually not realize, even when they do a kindness, how important that kindness is to them, to themselves, as well as what they're doing to the people. And believe me, there's plenty of things that are locally kind of upsetting. Like yesterday, I was in McQuaid's parking lot, and a young man was asking for help because he was homeless. Westerly is, think about as a community, but in fact, under the covers, hidden are people living in cars and things like that. So,
that's a good point you make. I think in terms of so many people. I mean, I feel privileged in a way that we can work on this stuff. So many people are just consumed by making a living and surviving, and that's where all their energy goes. So that's I think a good thing to keep in mind of,
So we're going to try and press and get people from all over the place to come and see this as not just an art show, but actually as an event that's important for the community in terms of what we're trying to send out as a message. This whole idea of hope. You have to remember what happened, and peace. I mean, there isn't any religion that doesn't close some prayer with just telling all of us to engage in peace. Peace among the family, peace among the tribe, peace in the country. I mean, peace in the world. I mean, we as Jews. I mean, every single prayer ends with peace. Shalom, peace. It's hello and peace. It's the same word. So, and in fact, there's plenty of examples that in fact is not being followed. But we need to set an example. We needed to set an example to have people see this as something that they have to participate in.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Yes, exactly right. And there are things are you going to have things like where people, if they're interested in your movement, that there'll be brochures or something?
We'll have all that around.
Something for people to go forward with and carry on this kind of message?
It's not my movement. There are a lot of...
I don't mean to say, I didn't
but
think
there are
it
a
was
lot of
Frank.
people that were involved in creating this. And I was telling Robin that there's a piece, and there's what do they call it? They keep chanting, but the Westerly Area Peace and Justice Group that's been around for, I think, like in the early 2000s. And so that's a bunch of us that were members of that came up with this idea of pursuing international cities of peace, and they do like events and stuff like that. So my point is, it's not just me. There's a bunch of people.
Yes. But you always need
would like it to
more.
be,
And you want more, and you want more, and you want more people to.
Definitely.
Yes, like there's oftentimes you see there's this, like do you have a city of peace in some other part of the world that you are engaged with?
There's close to, there's over 250 cities worldwide that are certified as an international city of peace. They have the International Cities of Peace has its own website, and then there's a drop-down list where the cities are, and there's Westerly Pawcatuck became the 200th city of peace. And what they do is they create a website for you on their site also, so there's quite a few. It's a growing. The person that runs it just put up there are 3 more cities that are going to be certified within the next 2 weeks. So you could work on Groton.
Okay.
No, but you live in Westerly.
I do live in Westerly, but that's. And what do you have to do to be a city of peace?
Well, there's a process where you you have to get a bunch of people to sign a letter of intent, and the letter of intent has a number of things on it, like using business and culture to create a city of peace and equity and, those sort of standard things. But the people that sign it are saying we're going to commit ourselves to this. So that's one thing. You have to write a history of the city in terms of its history, but maybe also some of the history around its peace activities. Then you have to write your goals, and there's a couple of other things. It's a lot of work to get it done, but almost any city that applies. It's kind of like when Westerly, Pawcatuck is not a city of peace in the sense that it's over and done with, and this is it, stamp. It's a city of peace is one that's working, has a number of people that are really committed to this, and that's not to say other people in the area aren't, but this is kind of their specialty, for lack of a better word. That's where most of their energy goes, around creating programs and that.
Is that what being a city of peace is? That you create programs that people participate in?
There's a wide variety of things that people do, like in some of the third world countries, just setting up a water system, or a gardening system.
And so you raise money so that you send it to some country in Africa or Asia? I mean, is that what's No.
There's not too much money involved.
Okay.
A lot of cities do stuff around music and have, events coming out of their city of peace around music or poetry. So it's extremely widespread. So I think there's so many things that enter into creating a culture of peace.
It sounds like it creates the setting the intention and writing, here's what we're going to do, here's what we're committed to, that creates a container where then things can start to move and happen.
Yeah.
But do you, and this is my bias, but don't you need a political platform at some point?
No, it's a non-political.
But see,
the organization
yes.
is very specific around being non-political.
But see, I see inaction without political will, and that unless you force politicians to either through the ballot box or through even protesting in front of their offices, that I am this child of the '60s, and I think that action brings action. That discussions, even art shows, poetry readings are lovely and but they bring the like-minded, rather than what's going on. Say this homeless issue in town, that it needs to be met with a political decision. Either somewhere along the line you let more beds be there for transitional living, or there's some outreach to drug and alcohol abuse. All of that, I think, can be driven by the people.
You're of that time when the phrase was the personal is political and the political is personal.
Yes.
And that was the women's movement of the 60s and 70s. But I wonder if what you're talking about that has been created, that creates a place and a way for the energy to bubble and evolve, doesn't then feed into the political awareness. It's just that it can look like it's happening separately.
Yeah. And when they say non-political, they're saying that they're not going to come out and say the international city of blah 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 is for this candidate, as opposed to that candidate.
No, I don't. You don't necessarily have to. You don't have to be pro one as making them create something for you in the name of a problem. So if there's a homeless issue, then there is actually something that can be done. So the zoning board can allow more transitional. I was trained as an urban planner, so I'm giving you my sense of what things that can be done, but they're not. They have to be done. To have them done is a political decision. It's done, and they're not elected politicians, the people who sit on the zoning board. There are neighbors and friends. It's like going in and politicking to your friends and neighbors and saying, look, we can't have young men begging for a place to sleep in McQuaid's parking lot. That is something that we in New England, in Rhode Island, we cannot accept as the norm. It's unacceptable. So that we need to do something about it. Does this young man have a drug problem? Does he have a housing problem? We can make things happen. And I believe, like you do, it comes from the bottom. It doesn't come from the top. But it ultimately results in some kind of political action. That's my orientation. I can't change that. But anyway, kudos to you, Frank.
Right back at you. I mean, I agree that that political action is an important piece of this whole process. And I think each of us has to figure out where we're going to put our energy.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
A friend of mine taught me a beautiful phrase. Is this mine to do? What is mine to do? And I think every one of us asks ourselves that question.
Exactly.
Yep.
How do I enter this arena? What aspect of it is mine to do?
Right. Well, this is going to be a great event.
Yes,
September 15th at the Westerly train station. Tell all your friends who live in Boston all the way down to Washington, D.C. they should come to Westerly, Rhode Island, a lovely place. September is a wonderful time to go to the Musquamaca Beach.
Absolutely.
At the same time, you come and you can see this artwork, you can hear the poetry, you can hear the stories of Holocaust survivors, you can pay tribute to people who are not with us anymore. It's just a wonderful opportunity. So I thank all of your efforts. I thank you for coming on, and we hope to see. I will see you all, and I hope that there will be 100 more who will be there as well.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vote for Robin.
Yes.
Oh yeah, yay!
As the art works.
I don't know, you're loading the deck.
So this is Harriet Grayson, and I want to let you know about a few activities that are going on in Westerly. All of you artists out there, you poets and playwrights and authors, fiction, nonfiction, memoir, I want to invite you to come to Literary Salon. That's your opportunity to share your work with an uncritical audience. You can be published or non-published, just have a hope and a prayer, but come and not only to read, but also maybe to support your friends or people that you might not even know. But anyway, we want you all to come to Literary Salon. I have a kind of alliteration for how I've divided. So I have Literary Salon, Books and Brews, and that's at the Malted Barley, which is in downtown Westerly, Rhode Island, September 17, 7:30 p.m. You can have a beer, you can have a pretzel, and you can hear wonderful readings of other people, and if you have a favorite thing that you would like to read. Then the next night, on September 18th, 6:30 p.m., we have, this one is Literary Salon Wine and Words, because it's a Tap Apple, which is a local group who makes apple wine and of course the apple cider. So I want you to come on down, tell all your friends, bring your favorite pieces of work, whether they're yours or somebody else's. If you want to read a favorite poet, long gone, come on down. We'd just love to have you. So come on to all our literary salons, and I look forward to seeing you. This is Harriet Grayson, your host and producer of Community Culture Showcase. Come see us again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.